I am Kayla Twain, SVP of Digital Strategy at More. I have been at More for about 6 years now, and I've had the honor and pleasure of working with all of my co-presenters today. We're going to be discussing all things texting. Texting isn't a new channel necessarily, but we've learned a lot about it over the past few years across all of our clients, and we're excited to share those insights and learnings with you today. I know that no two orgs on this call are in the exact same point in their texting journey. So we've developed this presentation to cover a lot, and that's so in a way that hopefully everyone gets something out of it. We're going to start with why the channel is so critical, how to evaluate channel success, the different types of texting technology available to us, use cases in future state, just some things coming down the pike that we're really excited about. We'll then review the text programs for both Christian Appalachian Project and the Mount Vernon Ladies Association. Some housekeeping items. You can ask your questions in the Q&A section. I'm going to hand it over to the rest of the team to introduce themselves. I've asked them to break the ice by sharing their favorite current television show, which they absolutely love me for, not. So I'll just start with that. And I am super excited for Christmas because it is Christmas, but mostly because Stranger Things is dropping the latest installments on the 25th, and I cannot wait. And that is my favorite TV show and current obsession. All right, I am going to hand it over to Khushbu Karia.
Hi, everyone. I am Khushbu Karia. I'm a senior digital strategist here at More. I've been with More almost 5 years this month. I'm currently not watching any show, no time, but I have picked up the latest Dan Brown novel, The Secret of Secrets. I've been a huge fan of the series, so I can't wait to dive into this one. And I'm going to hand it over to Jacob to introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jacob. I'm the digital strategist with the Christian Appalachian Project. I've been with CAP for a little over 3 years. I've worked with the More team the entire time, and I know that the relationship with CAP goes back a little bit farther. You'll hear me say CAP a lot because that's just short for Christian Appalachian Project, a little bit long there. But the More teams helped us reach new milestones, and happy to be talking about texting. It's one of my favorite channels for sure. One of my favorite shows as of right now that I'm watching with my wife is Landman on Paramount+.
All right, and I'm Kara Hirshhorn. I am the Director of Membership at George Washington's Mount Vernon. I just started a thriller on Netflix called The Beast in Me.
All right, so I will kick us off with why texting. So let's start with the challenges that nonprofits face today. Top of mind is declining email open rates. While we can all agree that email is still very much a necessary channel, it is getting increasingly saturated. There's declining open rates, donor fatigue is very real, and it's getting harder than ever to combat space for our emails in crowded inboxes. At the same time, campaigns are becoming more time critical. So things like matches or deadlines or any critical moments where we want to be able to reach our donors in that moment or within a few hours rather than days later. There is also increased pressure to demonstrate ROI, so connecting market spend with results. And with that pressure, it's amplified with rising acquisition cost in traditional channels like paid media. So that makes it increasingly difficult to bring on new donors to the file. There is also a struggle to reach younger mobile-first donors in the space where they are. So all of this leads us to needing a fast, efficient way to communicate with the donors where they are. Now let's talk about why texting fits that need so perfectly. First of all, it's very cost efficient to reach large audiences and makes it ideal for nonprofits who are working with a limited budget. More importantly, it also delivers immediacy with a 98% open rate and 90% of messages read within the first 3 minutes. Unlike email, texting also has a much shorter tail. So you're going to see a majority of the response and revenue come in within the first hour to the first couple of days. Texting also feels more authentic and human. So today, 83% of consumers prefer texting over email or social media because that's where they're already communicating. This helps organizations feel more relatable and build trust in this channel. When it's combined with other channels like email, it amplifies revenue, delivering up to 30% more revenue per person when it's part of a cohesive, combined multi-channel strategy. So when we look at performance, texting has consistently delivered strong, measurable results. Engagement is almost immediate with that 98% average open rate. The majority of the messages read within the first few minutes. And when combined with other channel, it can really lift results. So organizations who combine texting with email delivered 30% lift in results compared to email alone. And when it comes to ROI, it really stands out. We have seen up to 18.7 times return on investment for fundraising campaigns and up to 22 times return on investment when it comes to membership renewal campaigns. This kind of return is pretty much unheard of in any other channel. So in other words, texting doesn't just work, it works quickly, efficiently, and at scale. So how does this actually come about for nonprofit programs? It supports a wide range of goals across a nonprofit journey. So it can support fundraising through effective direct appeals, matching campaigns, key initiatives like Giving Tuesday or Year End, sustainer recruitment, even cultivation and engagement for stewarding donors. In lead generation, it can create a low friction way to grow your audience through newsletter signups, volunteer recruitment, or donor nurturing. In advocacy, it can enable fast and targeted outreach with things like action alerts, petition drives, and policy impact updates, keeping supporters informed and ready to act. One of the most powerful applications of texting is emergency response. So during crisis or disasters, texting allows organizations to share important updates, communicate in real time, and mobilize supporters immediately when the emotion and attention is at its highest. If you are an organization that does emergency response or disaster relief and you're not doing texting, you should be doing texting. It also plays a role in brand raising. So it can help organizations raise mission awareness through sharing impact stories or key organizational milestones in a way that feels more personal and timely. For event participation, it can boost engagement through things like reminders, registration prompts, or even post-event follow-ups that can keep the supporters connected even after an event has ended. Together, all of these use cases show how texting is not just a single campaign tactic, it's more of an ongoing strategic channel for driving impact. Now I'm going to hand it over to Kayla to tell us more about understanding texting.
This is going to be our texting 101 section. We can go to the next slide. There are a few different kinds of texts available to us. So you might hear the SMS, MMS, or RCS. Those are the three, that one's forthcoming. I'm going to get to that. But so you might hear texting referred to as SMS or MMS. The main difference between SMS and MMS is SMS typically refers to text-only messages, whereas if you've ever got a text message that has some sort of image or GIF, me and Jacob were just talking about this, in it, then that would be an MMS or mixed media message. That is the main difference there. And then I will say that there are differing price points for deployment amongst the different kinds as well, with SMS being the least expensive to deploy and RCS being the most. And again, I keep teasing that. I'll get to that in a second. So there's also P2P or person to person versus A2P, which is application to person. You may sometimes hear people refer to A2P as broadcast as well. They're used interchangeably. So P2P, basically the main difference there is that individuals do not have to expressly consent to be texted in order to utilize P2P. That may mean they have not said, I wish to receive text message from your organization. Through P2P methodology, you actually have the ability to append those numbers and legally send text to those individuals. Even if you don't have a huge list of opt-ins in your existing list, you can utilize P2P. Broadcast does require that express opt-in and consent. So individuals saying, hey, I'm raising my hand, I would like to receive text from your organization. Those audiences are very different, right? Because P2P may not have that express consent or familiarity with your organization, whereas broadcast does. And I do want to stress, I would be remiss if I said that an organization can't and shouldn't use both. You should. There are use cases for both P2P and broadcast programs. And then the future, what we're really excited about is RCS text messages or rich communication services. We're expecting that to drop in January 2026. We're really excited about it and will allow orgs to deliver really cool, it's almost like an email within the native text platforms. There's buttons, carousel images, videos. It's formatted really uniquely. So I'm sort of saying like it almost looks like an email within the native text platform, which is really exciting. On the next slide, I'll show you the difference between all three of those, what they look like. On the left, you have SMS, so that's text only. In the middle, you have MMS, which has an image coupled with the text and a link. Then in RCS, you can see we actually even have the ability to have an image or GIF or carousel swipe. You also have the ability to have buttons, which can allow for multiple CTAs, which is very exciting. Differing price points, SMS for deploy, that pricing looks different than RCS deploy. All right, so KPIs, how do we know that our texts are performing well? These KPIs are going to differ greatly depending on, like I said earlier, if it's a broadcast message versus P2P, but also what kind of message. Is it an advocacy message? Is it a fundraising message? Those KPIs differ across. So I'm going to try my best to give you guys some ballpark ranges because I think that that's really helpful, but I will specify which ones I'm talking about as I go through. Delivery rate, that is really of all the text messages that we sent, how many were actually delivered and reached those recipients. So delivery rate for P2P, for example, is roughly an 85 to 90% delivery rate. Click-through rate, so of the people who received the text, how many actually clicked through to that landing page or that donation page. For broadcast click-through rate, we typically look at like a 4.1% click-through rate overall. That's lower for fundraising messages, so 2.8%, and higher for advocacy messages, 4.8%. And that again is for broadcast click-through rates. Conversion rate, we've landed on the donation page or the landing page, how many people took the intended action? If it was a donation page, how many people donated? And so conversion rates on P2P for direct ask appeals, we typically see between 0.5% and 1.5%. And that's for conversion rate. Unsubscribe rate, this is the measuring the percentage of subscribers who opt out once they receive your text message. In an ideal world, that would be 0%. But we all understand that that is something that happens across all channels where that ability is available. So for unsubscribe rate, we would see for broadcast 0.7% is typically the unsubscribe rate. And then for P2P, right? So let's say you've appended all of these texts and these individuals have not necessarily opted in to receive texts. That first send you do is going to have a spiked unsubscribe rate because those individuals may say, I don't want this, I didn't want to be on here, and so they might unsubscribe. And that might look as high as 9 to 12% for that first P2P. After that first text in P2P, it should level out somewhere between 2 to 5%. I just threw a ton of numbers at you. There will be a quiz at the end of this, so to make sure you guys are paying attention. Just kidding. Okay, creative best practices. When you're sending a text, there are certain best practices you can follow to ensure that we're getting the best click-through rates and engagement with our messages. One of the things we like to do, especially if you're doing a peer-to-peer strategy where individuals may not have opted in to receive the text, there are ways you can build credibility within the creative in order to encourage people to engage with the message. One of the things that you can do is couple that message with your logo in an MMS format and alternate that logo with an image of someone you're helping, for example. And so just having that kind of engaging visual just helps make sure that that person understands this is a legitimate communication from that organization. Similarly, if you have, let's say, a sender that you use a lot in email or another channel that this individual may be used to seeing in conjunction with your organization, mirror that within the text creative. So let's say in Christian Appalachian Project's example, they send a lot of messages from Guy, making sure that Guy is the sender in text to help build that credibility and bridge that gap. Message impact, we like to keep messages concise, roughly 350 to 450 characters for MMS, and use vanity URLs where they are available to us. We always like to use personalization as best practice across digital channels and direct mail channels. So where you're able to use that personalization, let's do it. If we're able to start out the text with insert first name here and then follow with the rest of the message, that's what we want to do. Okay, I'm not going to get too in the weeds here, but I do want everyone to understand that there is this technical logistical back end involved with launching your first campaign. This image to the right made Kara laugh when we were going through it. That is our launch rocket ship SMS. Please enjoy. If you want to send a peer-to-peer campaign, You do have to obtain what we call 10 DLC registration. In order to do that, there is very specific language that has to be included in your organization's privacy policy. And there are a few other requirements to obtain that registration, and you can't send a peer-to-peer text without that registration, right? And so we can partner with you to help walk you through that whole process. Typically, we would go through that process, get registered, and then we would ask your organization to provide the audience data. Who are we messaging? That very much depends on what we're trying to accomplish. But in general, once we receive that data from the org, we can launch a campaign as quickly as 7 to 10 days after getting that data. If registration is completed, it can be quicker than that. So that speed to market that Kushbu was talking about earlier is really important. We constantly are monitoring the industry and what's going on. Just an example of one of the changes that's happening. Anytime there's a new channel or something going on, we always like to keep our clients very closely apprised, sort of gauge them for potential impact if we anticipate that. We had an iOS 26 update that launched in fall 2025. It definitely caused some nervousness amongst us because we didn't know exactly what it was going to look like. But essentially with that change, messages from numbers not saved in a user's contacts were automatically sorted into an unknown sender's folder. Suspicious messages would go to the spam folder. This would mean that if there was that spam folder, there's not going to be that like notification that you have to clear every notification in all of your apps because it drives you insane. So if you see an SMS text notification, it wouldn't show up there. We obviously have a lot of concern because that would impact open rates and things like that. Good news is that we have not seen that actually be enabled by default. And so we have not really seen a huge impact to our text programs for our clients. It's something we're continuing to monitor, but it has not had any drop on open rates or engagement metrics. I don't want to say that was a false alarm. We're still monitoring it, knock on wood, but it hasn't had the immediate impact that I think a lot of us were bracing for. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Jacob from CAP.
All righty. So a little bit about CAP. Our mission statement is building hope, transforming lives, and sharing Christ's love through service in Appalachia. We have 9 different human service priorities, a few of those being home repair, disaster relief, hunger relief, elderly services. Those are just a few of them. We've been around for over 60 years. We just had our 60th anniversary last year. One thing that's big about CAP is our Operation Sharing or our Gift in Kind program. Our employees and volunteers drove over 1 million miles each year through the Appalachian states as well as the Ozark states of Arkansas and Missouri. Within the last fiscal year, CAP distributed over 800,000 pounds of food. Our first text was on Giving Tuesday of 2022. The strategy here was to just our active digital donor file. We sent that to over 11,000 records, saw an ROI of over 21 to 1 with a net income of 31,000. As you can see in the screenshot, we've always used MMS. We just always want to have our logo there and make sure people know that it's us. And all messages come from our CEO and president, Guy Adams, as well. The first text, the average gift was $100. That did take out an outlier gift of 10,000, which was amazing to see. We were very shocked by that for our first text, but that was really cool. Obviously showed encouraging performance for us. The tactics with the text that you can see here, we have deadlines included. There's match language in some of our texting, and there's some all caps, some exclamation points. So just creating that urgency there. So after we got into Giving Tuesday, one big opportunity we saw was for emergency appeals. The texting channel is one that we can deploy very quickly. And the Hurricane Helene, when that struck last year, we were able to launch a text very fast, I think within the first day or two. We targeted 25,000 digital donors. We dipped into our lapsed donors as well, not just the active. And the text raised a combined total of 104,000, with about half of that being digital, half of that being direct mail. As we go further along in the texting strategy, we implement new things, and the direct mail file and getting those folks involved is one thing we did with this text. The overall ROI was 15 to 1, demonstrating exceptional cost efficiency and impact. I will say with texting as well, you're going to have that when you first start sending text, have an upfront cost of a little bit more when you append numbers, but as you add people, it'll even out. We sent a follow-up SMS about 3 weeks later, just kind of an update of where we were. CAP's approach most of the time is boots on the ground initially, but we're in it for the long haul. And so we want to make sure we update the donors with where we're at with that. That's where our operation sharing and some of those programs really come into play. It continued to prove itself as a fast, reliable, and highly effective channel, specifically for emergency fundraising. I'd mentioned the MMS and the GIFs. One thing we started to do with emergency appeals is our communications team uses a tool called Memory Fox, and that allows current employees, volunteers, and people local to upload pictures. It allowed us to use some things that were happening right then and immediately showed the donors what was going on. So additional applications we've grown with the channel over the last few years, and we did not want to send just fundraising ask every month. We kind of wanted to cultivate donors and tell them what's going on at CAP. You'll see another text here. This is about a lady named Brenda, who she was a 100th flood damaged home that we restored. And this saw a significant increase in website traffic to the blog. And there's some other examples we've used as well. We text for our Advent season, which is our Advent calendar going out this month. We have a podcast. We'll send a text about that every so often, as well as donor anniversaries, the direct mail integration that I've briefly talked about. We send on average about 2 texts a month, and obviously Giving Tuesday, year end, all that, having a little bit more. And audience strategy, so how it's evolved. We did begin with the digital file first, active donors, and then into that lapsed. We've even gone into deeply lapsed. Direct mail, active and lapsed as well. There are occasions where we will text non-donors and leads. And then major donors is unique for us. We tried that this year on Giving Tuesday, which resulted in some gifts. We texted our churches, corporations, and our major donors. One thing we wanted to be sure and do there is alert our teams and make sure that they were aware if the donors do not want to give right away to that text, that they could have additional conversations about something else they were wanting to do. Another one that's not listed here is plain giving. We do send some text about plain giving, just educational throughout the year. That could be about Make a Will Month or anything with estate planning. We try to have more education and tell them a little bit more about what opportunities there are.
Jacob, question on your audience strategy for that emergency appeal when you were appending text to your DM file. Did that go out via peer-to-peer since you didn't have opt-in for that channel?
Yes, that's a great question. It is P2P. Yes, we did append those numbers and send that to the direct mail audience. We do have an opt-in file. I will say it's not as widely used as our P2P, but our opt-in file, we use it for more than just fundraising. We have integrated that into our programs, like our volunteer program. We use that texting platform. We also use it for some events as well.
Thank you.
And yeah, sure. Channel performance trend year over year. As you can see in FY23, we only sent a handful of texts there with a cost of 15,000, 2,600 gifts, that ROI of 11.7. Average gift about $70 there. FY24 grew a little bit more with a solid ROI of 4.7. Average gift growing a little bit more as we went. And then in FY25, we sent 19 texts, saw almost $500,000 in direct revenue. It is direct revenue directly to the SMS channel with an average gift of $100. Also want to note that any gifts over $5,000 were removed from that average gift, and we do get a significant amount of $5,000 to $10,000 gifts in the channel. One other note as to why that channel may have grown as much last year is we did have multiple emergencies last year, so it was a highly effective channel for us. What is next for CAP? I've mentioned the direct mail piece. We are doing some more targeting with that. We have a CAP calendar that we send out every year that we're sending texting around, as well as a supporter card. So we're just trying to integrate that channel more into an omni-channel approach with our direct mail file. We're looking at some ways to use texting for acquisition. Very excited about the RCS implementation, some of those cool features that we'll hopefully be able to use next year.
Can you help articulate the difference between peer-to-peer and full?
Sure. So the P2P, the reason that is legal is because it comes from a local number. Your A2P is going to come from a 1-800 number or another number like that, but the P2P comes from a local number, and we're able to pin those numbers based off of our file. Most of our A2P opt-ins come from our donation page or another online forum we have. People who want to stay updated about CAP and various opportunities. I mentioned the volunteer program. We use that for signups as well. So P2P local number, that's kind of the legality behind it, I believe.
With a peer-to-peer, it's a physical person hitting the send button to each person on the list.
Yeah, that's why we always have the text coming from Guy. I believe for Women of Appalachia Month, we've done it from another staff member, but it always has to come from an individual, yes.
Thank you.
I think Kayla is experiencing internet issues, but we are going to hand it over to Kara to talk about the Mount Vernon Ladies Association membership program.
Thank you, Kush. At Mount Vernon, our mission is to preserve George Washington's estate and to educate the public about his legacy. Founded in 1853, the Mount Vernon Ladies Association has been preserving and promoting George Washington's Mount Vernon for more than 170 years. Our board is comprised exclusively of women and is the oldest historic preservation group in the nation. We are open 365 days of the year, so Mount Vernon is the most popular historic estate in America. Our visitation averages around 1 million visitors a year. Mount Vernon does not accept any government funding. Each year, we rely on support from individuals for every dollar needed to save George Washington's historic estate. We at Mount Vernon have been lucky enough to partner with More on both our direct mail and digital fundraising programs for the past 7 years. I would be lying if I said that getting texting at Mount Vernon was an easy sell. More had been talking to us for years about this new channel, but our organization was hesitant. Many thought that texting was too forward for fundraising, and they were nervous about how it would be perceived by our older donors. Finally, we got approval, and we were thrilled with the results.
Jacob, do you do your P2P sends in-house with internal staff, or do you use an outside agency or platform?
We use an outside agency platform to help us with that. We do have a significant amount of sends each time, and they take care of all that for us, yes.
Okay. And then a question about texting from a non-local number. We have a CIAO that wants to text their major donors, but he has an out-of-state number. I'm guessing you would set up a local number for that?
Sure. So that vendor will help you no matter where the donor is located. For example, when they send a text message, mine comes from a different local number than somebody else's does. It just uses that file to find a local number available and then send the text that way.
How will we know when RCS is available in texting platforms?
That's a good question. I think it's rolling out in early 2026.
January is what we're anticipating, and we're waiting with bated breath. We're hoping it's January, but we'll be the first to update everyone when we know.
Thank you.
I can speak to this. Like Kara mentioned, it was difficult to sell Mount Vernon on texting. Organizations may have a multitude of reasons for not wanting to venture into a new channel. We're here to hold your hand through the process and walk you through it. We knew that this initial test, there was a lot riding on it. We had to prove value in this channel. Our first test was Giving Tuesday. It is always our recommendation that if you're going to do a test, do it on Giving Tuesday or year end, because that is the time when donors are most likely to respond. It's going to show maximum value for the channel. Our recommendation was the active and lapsed digital donor files. We saw an ROI of just over 2.7 to 1. And a net income of just over $12,000 from 258 gifts. That is an average gift of almost $78. So clearly the channel performed well. Our key takeaways were that there was encouraging performance. Building on that success, we also added year-end text last year and expanded into other avenues of texting. So tentpole moments, key initiatives that the organizations could tie back to texting led us to the membership renewal text, which Kara will talk to us about.
As Khushbu said, due to the great success of texting for Giving Tuesday, we were excited to try this channel in membership as well. Unrestricted giving at Mount Vernon is powered by two core programs: generous donations from supporters nationwide, and our membership program, which offers special benefits in appreciation of members' charitable gifts. Our members receive 12 months of free admission to the estate in addition to extra on-site benefits. Our membership dues start at $79 and continue from there. Membership lasts for a full year, as I said, and members will receive renewal messages for 3 consecutive months. Renewal reminders are promoted through direct mail, email, social, and now texting. So we launched our initial campaign for membership in April of this year, 2025. Our initial test included our 2 highest performing email panels: members 1 month prior to their expiration date, and members the month of their expiration date. Based on the recommendations, we included our logo, we personalized the texts, and used our president and CEO as the sender. Our members are used to seeing Doug's name on the renewal letters in the mail, so it made sense to include this in the text as well. Our results were strong. ROI 35-1 for the 1 month expiration segment, and 14-1 for the month of expiration segment. Based on these great results, we have continued to run renewal texts each month and have even added an additional segment 1 month post expiration date. So we can go to the next slide to look at those results. As you can see, our ROI remained consistently strong month over month. Although that newly added 1 month post expiration segment performs the lowest, if you just pull that out and look at those results, it's still excellent and reliably strong over time. It is important to remember that our starting asks for these campaigns start at $79, so that will skew our average gift. We also see seasonality in our visitation, which directly impacts membership. So that's why you're going to see some variation month over month in these results. But another great outcome of adding texting is that we have seen an overall lift in renewal rates across all our other channels.
And then what are we excited about next in terms of texting when it comes to the Mount Vernon membership program? Membership acquisition, as well as membership conversion via texting. This could be people who are already familiar with Mount Vernon. They may be donors, they may be visitors, but through modeled lists, we could target them to convert via text. It could be people who are not familiar with Vernon. Through modeled lists, we could identify prospects who are most likely to convert to members and explore acquisition and bring new members onto the file.
We have a question in the chat for our nonprofit speakers. What best practices are you implementing to monitor and respond to inbound replies that you get from those texts, especially those peer-to-peer texts?
For us, we have a bank of replies that the vendor has ready. Any outliers they'll ask us about. We do update those every so often. For example, we have a new CEO starting in January, so we have to put some responses in there in case donors have questions.
Same for us at Mount Vernon. We worked with basic responses we anticipated we might get, and we provided them to the vendor. I believe we only had 1 or 2 that were off that list that we had to address outside of what we provided. So it was a really low lift on our team.
And I'll say too, the frequency of getting those responses back is very low. So it's not saying you won't get them, but it's not as if you're going to get a huge spike of people responding. I think people are getting used to that channel and knowing that technically it's two-way, but understanding that there may not necessarily be a real live agent on the other end of that.
And things like stop are automatically taken care of, correct?
That's right, exactly. So we have to have standardized language at the end of that, like reply stop to unsubscribe, and we honor all of that. Make sure those individuals are removed from those subsequent lists. All right, what's next? So we just put a lot out there for you guys. And so we're excited about a few things that are coming down the pike, RCS being one of them. I know we had some interest in when that was dropping, so we're going to get a little bit further into that. So we go to the next slide. RCS, it stands for Rich Communication Services. So this is really that next sort of evolution step in text messaging. So you can see on the right, we showed an example. Some of the core features that are going to happen within RCS are rich cards. So images, titles, descriptions, and buttons in this like very structured layout. I know I keep saying it's almost like comparable to an email. This is happening natively within your text app. So it's not as if we're driving this experience to a separate landing page. Like all of this interactivity will be available within that native text delivery app. We have the ability to support higher quality images, GIFs, video. We even have like swipe capability for carousel images within the native app. We have buttons, which I shared earlier, allows for multiple CTAs, which is really exciting. So you could even kind of test what CTA performs better based on what you're trying to accomplish. So you could drive separate places because there could be separate URLs linked to each of those buttons, which is exciting. We also have unlimited characters, so there is no character cap for this type of delivery. And there's also real-time indicators that we don't have with other methodologies. So read receipts, delivery confirmation, typing indicators, that's all something we'll be able to monitor through RCS. Another cool thing coming down the pike is our interactive survey. In the nonprofit space, there's lots of applications for surveys and questionnaires. I'll get to that in a second. But how it works is supporters are going to get a text leading to this interactive survey that's embedded. And then there's going to be questions that are adjusted based on each response. So it's got that smart branching logic and a unique journey delivered for each person. There can be media elements like images and video woven into that. And then the data syncs instantly for segmentation reporting and automated follow-up. So really just a cool way to gather information from your supporters and constituents and then create a customized journey based on that information in real time, which is really freaking cool.
Speaking of really freaking cool, will the RCS be available for both the peer-to-peer and the A2P?
And the A2P, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so let's show it in action first, and then I'll talk about it. All right. So again, just a very cool interactive experience. And the applications for nonprofits, while it's really cool to say what CAVS team member are you, that's not necessarily how we would utilize this technology. We could use it in several different ways: donor stewardship, or learning more about individuals who might be new to file, learning more about our new donors so we can customize their welcome journey. We could use it for volunteer engagement, capture availability, program and impact surveys, collecting stories, testimonials, etc. We could even use this for P2P programs. We have P2P in text and we have P2P in events and fundraising. So I'm using it in the latter sense, but you could get event feedback, immediate post-event sentiment, and automated thank yous. And then of course you could use it for advocacy efforts as well. It also has higher completion rates than email surveys, and you're able to get that information quicker. Yes, email surveys are great, but we all know that these land in people's phones instantly and they can interact with it quickly. It's more likely to get the information you're seeking in a quick manner, which is very exciting. So getting started. If you liked what you heard today, if any of this sounds interesting to you, if you want to mirror CAP and MVLA's success that they shared, we can help you do that. So we can go to the next slide. More Mobile Purpose is our text offering, and it will allow you to do everything we talked about today. Any types of message distributions, A2P, P2P, MMS, SMS, RCS, any of that, we are able to support that through More Mobile Purpose. And so we're really excited about the results it's driving for our clients. And if you are interested in learning more, you can contact me. My information is at the bottom. You can also contact Eva Prizo, who's on here as well. I believe she dropped her information in the chat, but we would be happy to talk more with any of you about it based on what you're trying to accomplish and see if this channel is a good fit for you. All right. Now we can transition into the Q&A session.
While we're vamping for a moment, we've also said in a couple of places, Jacob mentioned it, that text is being used in some cases to gather stories for folks without hopefully spoiling too much. Watch this space for some solutions coming in the early new year. If that's of interest to you, reach out because we'll have some sneak previews. We have a couple of questions. One is for our nonprofit speakers. How did you guys do overall with Giving Tuesday this year? You talked about some of the historical ones. How did this year go for y'all?
Giving Tuesday for us was another big one, especially in the texting channel. We do get a few large donations through that. This was the year we did test into those major donors, churches, corporations, and so it did well for us.
I can say that Mount Vernon had our best Giving Tuesday ever, but Kushbu, can you speak? So we were super excited about that, but maybe Kushbu could share some actual texting results from that.
Yes, of course. So this year was the second time that Mount Vernon did a Giving Tuesday text. Last year was our initial test. We expanded our audience segments to include sustainers, Facebook leads, and other leads that we had acquired through other channels. We saw a 3-to-1 ROI, which is a slight improvement on last year. And it is saying something considering we had expanded into non-active audiences.
I feel like that question was a plant because you guys both had such amazing Giving Tuesdays. So we love to share that.
And we do have someone in the chat, one of our animal shelter campuses, reporting that texting was the highest giving channel for them on Giving Tuesday, exceeding both website and email. So great to hear. Katie, thank you for writing in on that. That's a great contribution.
That's incredible. And go
I
ahead,
just
Jacob.
went back and looked at ours. This year on Giving Tuesday, through text, we raised $39,000.
And I can speak to the return because we had expanded the CAP audience as well this year. We saw a 10-to-1 ROI compared to 7-to-1 last year. So,
and I will say, big picture for Mount Vernon, who was so reluctant to get on this channel. Everybody is all in, all the way, ready, and like it is no longer a question of can we send a text. It's like, when are you sending the next text?
That's great, Karen. So Mount Vernon has done a 180.
Yeah.
And we love them. Now they're like, let's text on this. And we love that. So it's been great. But I will say too, speaking earlier, we just released our Giving Tuesday Insights white paper, which you guys can find. We've been promoting it on LinkedIn. I will say texting was a channel of explosive growth for all of our clients this year. So just to provide that additional bit of context, it's growing fast and continuing to grow.
Few more questions. Is there an opportunity to beta test RCS?
Great question. I don't know the answer to that, but if there is, we'll want to do it and we can make that available potentially. I'll let you guys know. I don't know the answer to that right now, but as soon as we hear if that's an option, we at More would want to have that available for us. No question.
And then we have a question that received a thumbs up. So this is not the only person asking about this. How does the audience segmentation work for this type of testing? Because the data is typically so messy.
So for us, our data team helps us with those files that get sent over, and we do have those in separate files. For example, active, lapsed, and the DM audience. With the vendor, when those reports come back, they are separated so we can measure success for each one of those.
I will say too, if we're looking to start, I know that a couple of times this was mentioned throughout the presentation, but if you're looking to dip your toe into texting, and Kara had mentioned it earlier, one of the audiences you should pull to demonstrate the impact the quickest is your active digital first file. Active organizations have different definitions of that. Maybe it's 0 to 6 months, maybe it's 0 to 12, but your digital first responsive audience is going to perform the best in this channel. So if you're going to start, that's where I would start.
We have a question in the Q&A. Can you address privacy concerns that charities might have, especially Cara, since you had some skeptics on your team? How did you help address those?
Yeah, so we are importing the opt-outs into our database. We created a flag on each constituent record so that we knew they had opted out, so we wouldn't pull them into future text appeals. We did work with our database administrator to create, it wasn't in there. We had to create something so that we could accurately keep track of that. And that is something that we all in-house also, if we're on the phone with a donor or anything, have the ability to update instantly, in addition to those regular pushes of information back that we're getting. Is that correct on that part of it?
Yeah, if you do peer-to-peer, even if we have the ability to append those numbers, if someone opts out of peer-to-peer, you have to legally opt them out, even if it's peer-to-peer. We do make sure that they are suppressed from any subsequent sends in peer-to-peer. So just wanted to say that out loud. I know it seems like you don't have to have express consent to be added, but if you ask to be removed, we have to honor that legally, and we do.
And that may have, go ahead.
I think the question is more related to how the consent is coded into the CRM. You could create a flag or a tag that says these people want to be specifically targeted with P2P or not for A2P, but the vendor can also help you filter out anybody who has opted out. They will automatically be opted out from the vendor's end as well. So even if those tags would get filtered into your data, they would be double checking to make sure that we're not texting somebody who has opted out.
Okay. So yes, that answers, I think, that next question. How do you differentiate between a peer-to-peer text and broadcast text? Okay. Those are the questions that I see.
Jacob, did you talk about the cost savings with peer-to-peer? That was something I wanted to make sure we talked through. The first one will be the most.
You're going to have that append cost of the first text from not having a lot of those numbers. But then as you go along, it'll get more efficient. You won't have as many append costs, but you'll have more people you're probably texting. So that will be more efficient over time. There is one thing I failed to mention in my presentation about the DM co-targeting side of it. We do see up to a 30% increased conversion rate when you put a text with a direct mail piece. With those text messages, you may not see a whole lot to the digital side of it, but it can lift the direct mail as well. So it's a really great option.
If you do have any other questions and you don't feel comfortable asking them today, you know where to find me. Special thank you to Cara, Jacob, and Khushbu for presenting with me today. I just absolutely love working with all three of you.